Hello, beautiful soul. My name is Yulia, and I'm the voice of the podcast Love to Heal. This podcast outlines my journey from atheism to Judaism, exploring spirituality from diverse perspectives. It is my hope that my journey will inspire others to embark on their own adventure of self-discovery and spiritual growth. Welcome to a new episode of Love to Heal podcast. Please like, subscribe, and leave a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Today, I want to talk about a tremendous book that I read recently, which literally changed my life. No joke. I actually heard about it on a podcast called Modern Jewish Girl, in which the host interviewed the author of this biography, which is titled Holy Woman. I was so intrigued by what I heard in the interview, namely the astonishing, miraculous life that Rabbi's and Chaya Sara Kramer led, that I had to read the book and find out all about her. It's not often that you hear of a Jewish woman being referred to or compared to a Tzaddik, which is a highly righteous, holy, and selfless person who is very close to God and even has prophetic abilities. I'm not one to read many biographies, to be honest. It's not a favorite genre of mine. So at first I didn't expect to be blown away by the book, but boy, I was. Let me tell you, I could not put the book down. And I couldn't stop talking about it to everybody around me. So that's why I thought I have to do a whole episode on it. After reading this book, it's simply not possible to remain the same person. This book, it completely changes how you look at life. Let me tell you a little bit about it without giving too much away. The book starts out with a recount of Chaya Sara's difficult childhood and her life during the Holocaust. In short, she was the sole survivor in her family. And what she endured in the concentration camp, well, it was beyond horrific. And I could see how most people in her position would either take their own life or at least become clinically depressed. But that was not the case with this incredible woman. She was born in the Carpathian mountain region, and she eventually began her life anew after the Holocaust in Israel. It was there that she married Rabbi Yakov Moshe Kramer, who is actually believed to have been one of the 36 Tzaddiks to uphold the world. Let me explain what that means. The 36 Tzaddiks, or Lamed Vavniks from the Hebrew for number 36, these Tzaddiks are a foundational concept in Jewish mysticism, and it holds that 36 righteous individuals exist in every generation, and they secretly uphold the world. This is unknown even to themselves, and this is what makes them hidden righteous people. And they're the ones who protect humanity without even knowing it through their anonymous acts of kindness and virtue. I want to share with you the key aspects of the 36 tzaddiks. Basically, the purpose, according to Talmud, is for these tzaddiks to uphold our world, to do so much good that it balances out all the bad that's done by the rest of the people. The Talmud says that if the number of these individuals fell below 36 in any given generation, the world would cease to exist. In terms of anonymity, they are hidden from society And often, like I said, they're unaware of their own special status. If a tzaddik is exposed, they might deny it, which is exactly what Rabbi Kramer did. He always denied that he was a tzaddik. He didn't even want people to know that he was a rabbi. But more on that later. In terms of traits, these people are deeply humble and often hold common, very humble professions. The significance. The number 36 is twice 18, 18 representing life or high in Hebrew. And when it comes to action, their virtue and care for others keep the world from being consumed by darkness. So typically, the tzaddiks, they dedicate their life to virtue, to caring for others. That is a constant among the tzaddiks that have been identified throughout history or that people have suspected them of being a tzaddik, because they are hidden after all. To give you an idea of Chaya, Sara, and her husband Rabbi Kramer's holiness, kindness, and generosity, I will mention a couple main aspects about their lives that will absolutely serve as an inspiration for you. After surviving the Auschwitz concentration camp, Chaya Sara was unable to have children. Her destiny lay in raising other children who were not wanted by their parents due to severe health issues. So what happened was people would anonymously drop off babies on her doorstep because they knew that this saint of a woman would take care of them. Some people didn't want these sick children because they were afraid of the stigma that would surround their families. Others felt like they didn't have the time or the means to take care of a disabled child. So Chaya Sara raised numerous brain-damaged kids, most of whom, unfortunately, died at very young ages. And she did all this with her husband, despite their very scarce resources. To say that they were poor, I think, is an understatement. If you really want to understand how poor they were, you have to read this book, because I cannot even begin to describe their financial struggles. And they were poor not because they were lazy or did not have jobs. It was because they gave away everything they had to take care of others, while surviving on the little bit that was left over for themselves. They always gave the best to those in need or their guests. They put everyone else first, always. The moment they found out that a Jew was in need, they would give everything they had to help him or her out. While most of the time they helped others financially, there were many other mitzvahs that they became known for. For example, when a young Jewish man was wanting to get married and he didn't have the funds to purchase for his fiancée a piece of jewelry, this is a Hasidic tradition for engagement, Rabbi Kramer gave him Chaya Sara's sole piece of gold jewelry that she had ever owned. It was a gold bracelet that was given to her by Rabbi Kramer himself, and he gave it away. And he did this without even asking Chaya Sara for permission, to which her response was, well, not what I expected. Imagine your husband takes your favorite piece of jewelry, the most expensive, the most precious gift he's ever given to you, and without permission, he gives it away to somebody in need. What would your reaction be? I know I would probably have thrown a fit. But Chaya Sara, not only was she not upset that he gave away her precious gift, but she was elated to have been able to help out another Jew. Her kindness was, of course, rooted in her deep spirituality. I would like to quote from the book on this topic. Chaya Sara experienced the essential truth of spiritual reality, oneness. On the physical level, we are separate individuals. One body ends where another body begins. On the spiritual level, however, all Jews share one collective soul. On the physical level, the more I give away, the less I have. On the spiritual level, giving to another Jew is like transferring an object from my right hand to my left. There is no loss, only a different hand holding the object. Isn't that amazing? And yes, Chaya Sara, she speaks in this book mainly about Jews and sharing and caring for other Jews. But this concept goes for all people, all of humanity. After all, we are all souls and we're all connected one way or another. So I think that we can take this idea and apply it to our everyday lives where we may not be interacting with a person of the same heritage or faith as us, but we can still help them and love them as we would ourselves. Another way the writer of this biography explains Chaya Sara's altruism is by comparing our life choices to boarding a train. And again, I quote, "Most of us, as we stand on the train platform of choice, choose to board the train that looks sleekest and most comfortable, without even bothering to check on its destination. Chaya Sara chose to board a dilapidated train that promised a bumpy, sooty ride. Its destination was spiritual greatness." The polarity between giving and taking is the essential choice that confronts all of us, many times a day. Hashem's fundamental attribute is that He is a giver. We emulate Hashem whenever we choose to give without thinking, what's in it for me? And I think that is a great point that this writer makes, that we are used to living in a society where we expect something in return for our good deeds. And it shouldn't be that way. We should just do good because it's the right thing to do, because that's what our soul wants and yearns for. And I just think that it's something we should consider every day, to just do, to give, to love, without expecting something in return. Because that is exactly what God does. And if we want to emulate Him, if we want to achieve spiritual growth, that is, if not number one step to achieving spiritual growth, it's definitely up there. Again, the society that I grew up in and I live in has taught me to guard my possessions, to ensure that my needs and my caprices are met before giving to others. And with this mindset, I could never become a tzaddik or get as close to God as a righteous person. But, the idea for common folk like us is not to become a tzaddik. People are actually born tzaddiks. Instead, for common people like me, my goal is to learn from these tzaddiks and strive to be more like them. You know how they say, shoot for the stars. So even though we probably will never reach that level of righteousness, at least we can strive. Perhaps I don't give everything I have worked for away, but at least I start giving. And if I was already giving, perhaps I give a little more. And hey, it doesn't have to be all about money. It can be time, an act of kindness, even a smile to a stranger. I've talked about giving in previous episodes. But I think until I read this book, it didn't occur to me how much more giving I could be doing. Until I read this book, I didn't even recognize how much I already had. and how much of that I can share with those in need. The other reason I want to mention that Sara and her husband were struggling financially was their refusal to accept any financial assistance from Israel's government. Reading about this finally helped me understand why some Jews are Zionists and others are not. I used to think that Jews by nature are Zionists because why wouldn't any Jew want Israel, their holy homeland, to flourish? Well, it turns out that many religious Jews were and are against the settlement of Israel before the construction of the Third Temple during the Messianic era. In other words, first Moshiach has to arrive, and then we can build the temple and then recognize the state of Israel. And this view is based on the 3 oaths, the first of which states not to ascend the wall, meaning Jewish people are prohibited from returning to the land of Israel en masse through force or an organized political movement. To add to that, the Holy Land is a place for worship, for spirituality, for all things holy, and not for the secular and the mundane. Seeing what has become of Israel, almost half of the Jews there report themselves as secular. The religious ones, they do not agree with how the Holy Land is being used. Take, for instance, the Hebrew language. This language is literally holy. It was never meant to be used in everyday speech to speak about what I'm cooking for dinner or what type of toilet paper to buy. You get the point, right? This is why for generations Jews spoke Yiddish, because Hebrew was reserved for services, for prayer. But Israel has made it that Hebrew became a common tongue. So that's one of the issues. Similarly, with other aspects of Judaism, Israel has allowed non-kosher food and restaurants to be available to the public, for women to serve in the army, for traditions to be forgotten. And the list is long. So even though Sara sought refuge in Israel after the Holocaust, coming to the Holy Land with literally no money, no possessions. In fact, actually, she arrived prior to the establishment of the State of Israel. And when Israel became a state, she never agreed with the politics of her homeland. And that's why she refused to gain from the government in any shape or form. And while possessing close to nothing throughout her life, her and her husband's righteousness and selflessness was completely otherworldly. Rabbi Kramer's mission in life became opening Jewish schools for children. He would raise money and pay for countless boys and girls' private education, many of whom went on to become rabbis or very religious individuals. Due to Sara and her husband's closeness to God, they also had the ability to bless others. Toward the end of their lives, people would travel from across the world to ask the couple for a blessing, perhaps to have children, or to cure a disease, or for a business to flourish. And while people began to recognize this couple as tzaddikim, Sara and her husband always denied it. Even though they were clearly connected to God in ways that regular folks could not even ponder, even though Rabbi Kramer was a rabbi, they posed themselves as nobodies. Rabbi Kramer didn't even want to admit that he was a rabbi when people sought him out for guidance. They were very humble people that had a little farm that raised cows and chickens. And like I said, Rabbi Kramer, he would travel. Actually, he traveled abroad many times to the United States and to Europe to raise money to open schools in Israel for those kids that could not afford a Jewish education. So this humble feature is probably one of the most important features of a tzaddik. They have tremendous humility, and humility became another main lesson for me that I took away from this book. It's also very interesting. In this biography, I learned of Igeres Haramban. This is a miraculous letter that turned prayer, which was written by the Jewish medieval scholar Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman to his elder son. This letter was instructed to be read at least once a week, and it serves as a blueprint for a modest and humble life, teaching its readers to avoid anger, practice humility, and never stop striving spiritually. I would like to read one paragraph to you that especially stood out to me. And it goes like this. And now, my son, understand and observe that whoever feels that he is greater than others is rebelling against the kingship of Hashem, because he is adorning himself with his garments, as it is written in Tehillim. Hashem reigns, he wears clothes of pride. Why should one feel proud? Is it because of wealth? Hashem makes one poor or rich. Is it because of honor? It belongs to Hashem, as we read. Wealth and honor come from you. So how could one adorn himself with Hashem's honor? And one who is proud of his wisdom surely knows that Hashem takes away the speech of assured men and reasoning from the sages. So we see that everyone is the same before Hashem, since with his anger he lowers the proud, and when he wishes he raises the low. So lower yourself, and Hashem will lift you up. If you've listened to my very first podcast episodes, you will know that the ego is one of the main deterrents of the godly. It's what prevents us from having a relationship with Hashem in the first place. And in a nutshell, that is the story of my life. And the formula now is very simple to me. It's very clear. Be humble, and God will lift you up. Be proud, and God will lower you through disease, heartbreak, poverty, etc. To be humble simply means to not put yourself above others and to attribute all your successes to God. It has been taking me some time to reprogram my mind and minimize my ego, but I have noticed great progress. Yes, from time to time I forget and I begin to boast, to myself of course, of how good a job I've done or what a great person I am. But typically, I quickly come to the realization that I'm not being humble at heart. And so instead of that, I start thanking God for giving me the opportunity to do what I do and be me, to have a head on my shoulders, to have a healthy body, to actually do the mitzvahs that make me look so good, maybe in the eyes of others, that make me proud in the first place. There are so many lessons that I learned from this book that I could talk for hours. If you ever need a quick inspiration, do check out my Instagram or TikTok where I post quotes from this very book. I make them into a little pretty slideshow, and they are sure to change your perspective on many matters. I will mention 2 more teachings that stood out to me. The first being peace in the home, or shalom bayit, as it says in Hebrew. And peace in the home is the Jewish value of maintaining harmony, respect, and tranquility within the household and family. The key to such harmony is something called Vatranus, the quality of submitting for the sake of peace. The Baal Shem Tov, founder of Hasidism, emphasized domestic harmony as a foundational element of divine service and joy. He taught that a loving home, free of conflict, is essential for spiritual growth and connecting with God. His teachings prioritize nurturing kindness, respect, and unity within the family unit. Reading about Sara's and her husband's difficulties in life, raising so many disabled children with basically no money, undoubtedly created much stress on their relationship. Yet they were known to always maintain peace in the home. They never raised their voice at their children who didn't or couldn't listen to instructions, whom I'm sure made a mess and would have frustrated any human being. Moreover, their love for each other was exemplary. They showed each other sky-high respect, never contradicting each other in the presence of others. They shared house responsibilities and supported each other as if they were literally one single unit. In Judaism, a husband and wife becoming one, based on Genesis, signifies a deep spiritual, emotional, and physical union, creating a single, complete entity rather than just a partnership. Rabbi Kramer respected his wife like his own body, while Sara held that when a woman treats her husband as a king, he will treat her as a queen. And so it was in their marriage. And sadly, when Rabbi Kramer passed away before Sara was no longer whole. It was evident due to her sadness and deteriorating health. Their relationship actually reminds me of my own grandparents, whose relationship was exemplary as well. And I remember when my grandfather passed away, my grandmother did not want to continue living. She simply could not fathom life without her other half. My goal is to achieve this kind of relationship with my husband. We have been doing pretty well in the 10 years of marriage. I know 10 years is nothing, but I thank God every day for our beautiful, wonderful relationship. And of course, the idea is to keep growing together and learning to maintain harmony in our home so that we can serve God with joy. And finally, I can't not mention one more fundamental teaching in Judaism. Joy is a choice. You may have heard that happiness is a result of one's attitude and appreciation for whatever one has. Believe it or not, Sara's joy went even deeper than seeing her glass half full. How is this possible? Well, in the early episodes of my podcast, when I was still exploring New Age philosophies, I spoke of humans possessing a channel through which divine energy flows. And when I began to learn Judaism, I realized that this concept had been present ever since the beginning of monotheism. Ever since Abraham felt connected to a soul God, a soul creator. So I want to explain a little bit about how this works. When we're connected to God, when we have a strong relationship with Him, and we let Him into every moment of our lives, we receive this tremendous divine energy, divine love, which bestows upon us blessings such as children, health, wealth. When this channel is open and we're connected to God, it is impossible not to be happy, because we begin to see God's love in every little mundane thing, from our opening our eyes in the morning and taking another breath, to having food on the table and clothes to wear. And then everything becomes a source of happiness. And when God sends us hardships and pain, for reasons beyond our understanding, we have a choice to either resent the Creator and become depressed and defeated, or continue to love Him and seek refuge in Him and thank Him for the miracle of life. Sara endured what most people will never even come close to experiencing. She lost her parents and all of her siblings to the concentration camps. Her body was used by a German doctor for experiments in Auschwitz, and she began her life from zero, with no possessions, with nobody that she knew, nobody that took care of her. She began her life anew in a foreign land. Nonetheless, this woman chose to see only the good in her life, however small it may have been, and her unwavering faith in God is what kept her living and sharing her love and blessings until she was 80 years of age. To take it a step further, Sara did not even look for happiness. She didn't consciously, like it's so popular nowadays, to meditate and to do yoga and do everything that feels good and nice for yourself and try to find that happiness in the fast-paced, materialistic world that we live in. Her goal was very different. It was to give as much as possible. And by doing this, in return, she was happy. That was just the byproduct of her giving. She wasn't consciously seeking happiness. She was just doing what felt good and what felt right. And while most of us experience happiness when we receive something, a salary, a gift, healthy children, Sara was happiest when she gave. She never did anything for fun or for pleasure. She was always doing for others. And this, of course, is what made her a righteous person, a tzaddik. We are not expected to be exactly like her. I don't expect myself to never do anything for fun or pleasure, and I don't advise that to any of my listeners. But we can learn to experience happiness through giving rather than receiving. Just imagine how amazing our world would be if everyone focused a bit more on the needs of others rather than on their own. The Western philosophy has been inverted for some time now. Newsflash, by spending money and energy acquiring material objects, people do not become happier. On the contrary, after feeling joy for a day, maybe, they become more depressed the following day. According to Judaism, the antidote for depression is not to go out and buy something, but rather go out and help someone. Be a giver. I promise you will be amazed at the difference in the quality of your life. As I said, this book is a treasure, and every page, seriously, has something written on it that I would share with you. If you liked what you heard, I encourage you to purchase the book. And if you liked this episode, please also share it. Thank you for listening, and until next time.